Hello, everybody. This is yours truly, KaneFan701, and today marks a day of mourning. To mourn the loss and the celebration of the lives that were sacrificed. To those who survived both World Wars I and II, it's a day of remembrance. They did not give their lives in vain. They fought for peace and freedom. And for those who survived and lived to tell about it, is how we learned the horrors of war. If they hadn't fought for the freedom and self-sacrifice that they had, I don't think none of us would be living the lives that we have now. While we have had our 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock, I have to tell you that even though we never knew who these veterans were, they will forever be remembered in our minds and our hearts forever, lest we forget. And while this is a day of remembrance, it's unfortunately become an even tragic time. For all of you guys who are fans of DC and Batman, I am so sad and ready to tell you. It is with great reluctance and sadness that we have lost another Batman legend. Kevin Conroy, who voiced Batman in the original animated series, he has sadly passed away. He has died at the age of 66. We don't know what actually caused his death. However, we will later find out eventually over time. But this is a tragic and sad time for a lot of us. While we continue to honor the fallen who died in World Wars I and II, the DC and Batman fandom are gutted and broken. They cannot believe it. Even I can't believe it. I thought for a moment it was all a hoax, but it turns out through social media, and as well as learning from fans, from other fandoms that I'm a part of, it is true. We have lost another legend so suddenly and unexpectedly. And apparently it's also the new day of Comic-Con as well, having a 3-day special event. But now I'm absolutely going to think, and I'm actually nearly horrified to think, that anybody over there who are dressed up like Batman at the Comic-Con events in Birmingham, up in London, or anywhere else in England, or anywhere else around the world right now, this is a tragic time. And unfortunately, we have to come together and unite. To all Batman fans, young and old alike, we have to honor this fallen person. Kevin Conroy was one of the first Batman voices I ever knew growing up. When I watched the original series, he was kind of the voice of Batman that I kind of recognized more than Michael Keaton's or Val Kilmer's Batman at the time. It's just, when you hear that character, you think of him a lot. In a lot of strange ways, he was the Batman of our childhood. It's just unbelievable. I mean, I literally cannot believe it. I mean, I've only just overcome the sadness of remembering the fallen soldiers in World War I and II, and now to find that this has happened. This is tragic. For anybody who's a DC fan who loved Batman as well, I think it's time that we all have our thoughts and prayers at this point in time. This is absolutely just gut-wrenching. And I literally cannot express how upset I feel right now. I literally cannot believe it. Everybody through Facebook, through Twitter, DeviantArt, Discord, and, Instagram, the whole 9 yards out of social media, they're absolutely gutted. They cannot believe this. The community of DC is shattered. And every Batman fan that I can guess right now are just breaking into tears and in mourning. I mean, I feel sorry for those who may have met and got, Kevin Conroy's autograph, who were able to know him and speak to him. That's even more gut-shattering to know that they were now going to remember this guy, I mean, this is just absolutely terrible. It's literally a tragic time for a lot of us. For anybody who wants to take their part in this, I'm going to leave a link here for you guys because I literally just cannot believe it. I am absolutely just gutted. I'm literally just gutted beyond thought at the moment. I literally cannot believe it. I'm in shock. I literally am lost for words, guys. I cannot tell you how broken this is. I mean, literally, it is true, guys. I really am gutted. That's why I'm doing this stream now, Sankadai, Yeah, it's a tragedy. I mean, to all of this to happen on Remembrance Day. I mean, now that I mean, this is going to be more than just remembering about the loss of life in the wars that died in World Wars One and Two, and now we've got to do it now to honor Batman's actor who played him. I mean, how tragic can this get? I literally just don't believe it. I literally just do not believe it, man. This is just, I literally cannot stop repeating myself. This is just an absolute tragedy, man. I may not be able to watch the animated series the same way again now after this. It's literally a tragedy. And to have this happen here on Remembrance Day, this is absolutely gut-wrenching. Guys, I've left a link for you guys if you guys want to pop in and join in this because I might have to do a 2-minute silence now for Batman's voice actor now. So, if you guys want to, it's, this is literally unbelievable. I literally cannot express how gutted I am. I'll be back in a second, guys. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. I just come down to get a drink. If anybody wants to pop in, I have left a link for you guys here down in the chat. If you guys want to be a part of this, we might have to hold a 2-minute silence. So it's just, I might have to do so. Hang on. Like, this is really gut-wrenching, guys. I literally cannot express how broken I am. Because I grew up watching the original, And this is just, it really is just, it's earth-shattering, man. I literally cannot believe it. I just cannot believe it, man. I just literally am gutted. I'm lost for words. I literally just cannot explain, man. This is really terrible. I'm not doing too well, guys. Like I said, I've already done my Remembrance silence, but now with the loss of Batman's voice actor, this has just made it bad. I'm absolutely gutted. I'm literally, I cannot express how broken I'm feeling right now. If anybody else, like I said, come and join me in, and I'll, you know, we can help come together and just hold a few minutes silence as well. Hang on. Again, guys, sorry if I'm being muted or whatever, man. I literally just can't believe it, man. I literally just cannot. I mean, he was the voice actor of the animated Batman. He even did him in a couple of video games and other newer ones that we know of. But I don't think the DC universe is going to be the same. I mean, literally everybody's finding out about this now, about the whole Batman's passing, man. Everybody's broken. I just knew this was going to happen. Everybody is just, they can't believe it. All my closest friends as well can't believe it either. They're like, what the hell? They're like shocked. Damn. I knew this was going to be a big impact, but this is just, my God. Literally, I'm just reading left and right. It's dominating the headlines, guys. It literally is. Oh, this is, I mean, of all places to have this happen on the day of remembrance, and now we lose another actor, another famous legend, and of all people, Batman's famous voice actor, Kevin Conroy, has now fallen. I mean, this year has definitely had its toll on the worst, but damn, this is just unreal. This is just tragic, man. I'm literally, everybody's looking around right now. All the Batman fans are finding out. They are literally feeling the same loss that we've just found out. I'm telling you, of all places for this to happen. Like, if you want to get back, for those of you who might remember who Batman was, Michael Keaton's Batman is remembered for the costume and the theme. There's Val Kilmer's Batman, but a lot of guys who remembered the voice mostly of him was Kevin Conroy when he did the animated series back in the early 90s. And for a lot of us, that was the voice of Batman who we knew growing up. Even I admitted it was the same guy. I mean, I can tell you one specific book that was written when I was really in my early years as a Batman fan. This is true. They did one version of a special Christmas book story that they did for fans who loved Batman. They did one, especially for me, during one particular Christmas time when I was about 5 or 6 or 7 years of old, and it was signed by Kevin McCoy himself. They did this anime thing where they put my character in a Batman book, and I was with Batman for the ride, helping take down the bad guys. And this is true. I've got this somewhere in storage somewhere if I can find it. And at the end of the day, it's like a little Christmas postcard, and it says, from me, thanks for helping around, from Batman himself. It's just, it's a clever story that they put together back in those days, and they even let me ride in the Batmobile. It's just really cool back then to think, the wonder stuff that was like a Christmas gift from Batman's animated counterpart himself. and it remains a special thing forever, even to this day. I've even reread it a couple of times, and I'm just so grateful. I was one of the few Batman fans back then who was so lucky enough to have that done. I mean, it's a shame I never got to meet Kevin McCoy himself, the man, but to have his sign on the Christmas thing that he did for the Batman animated Christmas stories that were done for fans like myself who had disability issues, it was a blessing. It's really going to be hard now to fathom. I mean, I still wonder how are DC going to cope without him? Like, who will be the next Batman to be recognized in animation compared to his actual counterpart now, who's done it for so long? It's like, I think if Batman's going to have another animated movie done or have a new series done, they should do it in his memory. They should do it in his memory to remember who he was. They'll have to find the right voice actor to do him, though. That's my only way. They have to give him the great send off that I think Kevin Conroy will need. I'm telling you, man, this is just earth shattering. Everybody in the DC universe is they're shattered, man. They are literally heartbroken right now. I bet you guys can now feel it too, how terrible this is. This is basically, I couldn't say any better. This is the darkest time for DC ever. And on a day of remembering the fallen, of the soldiers who fought in World War One and Two, to remember their sacrifices that were never done in vain, for a better world of peace and love and freedom. And now this suddenly comes out of nowhere. It's almost like now we have to put this as a Remembrance Day / Batman remembrance now. I mean, I literally can't explain it any better. Oh, God damn it. For those of you who are still with us watching live now, I'm just going to do a little brief, camera show here. I literally cannot believe this, lads. Like, I know I don't normally show this or whatever, but this is literally just terrible. That's how I found out later on when Twitter confirmed the loss, man. So we will have to remember this day, not for all the thousands of guys who died in the wars, but now we have to remember the loss of our fallen brethren, another Batman legend. Yeah, we're going to have to remember, like, Kevin Conroy, aka the anime Batman voicer, along with all the guys who gave their lives in World War One and Two. I mean, I already did that already this morning at 11 a.m. in the morning, but now this. I mean, of all places of this to happen, on the day of remembering. This is terrible, man. Literally gut-wrenching. So if all of you guys are still here, I think it's time that we should all come together. Let us all come, our brothers in arms together, unite as one. And let us now pay our minute of silence to remember the life, the voice actor of Batman, aka Kevin Conroy. If you listen to this, my friend, this is for you. And I think Batman himself will appreciate it even more. Hey, Billy Dud, I can see you. It's time for us to pay our respects, man, to remember the fallen. I guess he's too asleep to take part in this, but oh well, I guess he can still hear us. Don't say that, Daniel. I can understand how tragic that is. Hey, Billy, I got you, mate. Can you see me? It's time for us to mark our remembrance to honor the fallen and to remember Batman as well. I guess he can't see us. Oh well, we'll have to continue on with this, man. So, that being said, guys, let's come together and pay our respects. For those of you who are wearing a cap or anything that's related or whatever, hey, Billy, I can see you now. I think it's time we all have to say so and to remember. You haven't jinxed anything, Daniel. It's all right, mate. I can hear you. I always tell, man. Like I said, we're going to have to come together. You know, Daniel, I'm sorry to say that, man. I was going to put you a timeout, but I don't think we should be fighting each other on this tragic, sad time. So, lads, everybody who's watching live right now, please give a minute's silence. Let's come together and remember. And as much as I'm trying to hold back my own damn tears for this is going to be gut wrenching. So, to everybody who's watching live and here's now, for those of you who might watch this later on, please give a moment's silence as we play the last post to remember Batman, aka Kevin Conroy, who played him from the animated series into whenever he did it the last time. This is for him. And if Batman were here to see this, he would be gratefully happy. If the Batman sign was shining on right now, that would be the ultimate tribute to another fallen who kind of voice acted in the cape and cowl of the Dark Knight himself. This is for him. Farewell, Kevin Coy. Kevin Coy, that was for you, my friend. Thank you guys for taking your part for this 2 minute silence. I mean, the day has changed for DC and for Batman fans you and me especially, it is definitely a time to remember. I mean, we'll never forget the lives who sacrificed themselves for the wars and everything. But this isn't now a time to remember Kevin Conroy and the life he had. To remember the voicing he gave for Batman, for the iconic series that he gave. This is truly a tragic time, not of remembrance. It's true, Banks. It's true. You just missed the 2 minute silence, pal. For you guys, if you guys want to hear that, you're gonna have to skip it back a little because I just played the last post for Pally to remember who this man was.
Yeah. Christopher Reeve died.
Yeah, Christopher Reeve. He long since passed. He is the guy who played Superman in the original trilogy, but he'll always be remembered as the Batman Superman we know from the comics. Whereas Henry Cavill, who plays him now, he's more like the Superman of our modern time as grown fans, and he kind of looks more like Superman as I would envision him for real, rather than from the comics. But this is different, man. Hey, Redziel, you just kind of you just missed the moments of silence. I've just already played it. I've just had to hold back a lot of tears, man. So, man, it's just really gutting. I literally know how bad this is. Guys, if you want to join in, I have left a link in for you. If you guys want to be a part of this, I can easily do another repeat after. So here you go, guys. I've left the link in the chat here for you. Come up on board and we can have another round of silence if we'd like to. We can double our respects. Like I said, this is really a terrible time. Every Batman fan that I've spoken to right now, they cannot believe it. Some have just found out, but I'm telling you right now, the DC brand and everything else is just shattered beyond recognition, man. This is literally, like I said before, this will probably be the most darkest time that I'll ever recall in DC for a modern time. I mean, no one will ever replace Kevin Conroy's voice acting, but still, this is a terrible time, man. Guys, I have left a link for you. Just drop down here and you can actually be a part of it. I literally just don't know what to say anymore, guys. I literally am on the verge of just breaking, man. I literally held back during that silence, man. Guys, if you want to join, like I said, the link's right there. Pop on board, the guys. Literally, I've got plenty of space for another 4 more guys to pop in the stream. Yes, that is very true. He was ultimately legit in the series, Red Scream. I know Batman was, my childhood hero too, but Kevin Conroy was the voice childhood of my Batman childhood. But Michael Keaton was like, the Batman in the suit in a way of my childhood, along with Val Kilmer and of course with Ben Affleck as the adult version of Batman in my modern times now. But yeah, Kevin Conroy's Batman is more recognizable for the voicing that he did. Again, Red Series, if you want to, the link's right there, guys, if you want to join. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, what's up?
I know. Nothing much is going on, but like I said, while we are remembering the fallen of those who gave their lives in World War I and II, this is unfortunately a sad time for DC because we just lost Batman's voice actor from the animated series, Kevin Conroy. He just died at the age of 66.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's part of my French,
That's
guys.
actually-
Part of my French, and no disrespect,
Yeah.
but this is batshit crazy. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's I just woke up, dude. Like, I'm actually speechless. I was having like not even a good morning either. Someone was getting on my nerves, and then I saw this, and I was just like, it was just a really bad time. It's
I know.
like, how do you respond to that?
I know.
66?
I know. He was 66 years of age, and he didn't. None of us. It's related to he had some sort of health problem. The actress who played Poison Ivy in the series confirmed he's passing, and many of us didn't believe it. I just found out maybe an hour ago, and I can't believe it. I literally am just. I'm not. How am I ever going to be able to watch the animated series the same way again without knowing we've lost another legend?
Well, we have to, to live on the memory. You gotta have to still enjoy that kind of. Sorry,
and you know
gotta stop the language. I was about to swear, but I'm gonna try to settle that. But
I know.
But we have to enjoy that kind of stuff because, like, that's his life, that's his memory.
I know, but for now, I mean, I can only imagine how everybody else is going to think. And I mean,
right?
What about all the guys right now? What about the guys in who have been at Comic-Con today? Who have met some of them who may be dressed up as Batman right now, or even the little, even the teenagers and kids as well, and like the grown people who are cosplaying the Dark Knight right now. If they found out, just like we are, I can only imagine, how broken they're gonna feel. And on a day of this new day of Comic-Con, it's gonna be like a 3-day special, and we've done this for Remembrance Day, and now this so suddenly.
They might, if they are going to continue, they probably going to have more of a memorial than an actual icon to commemorate to the lost, right? Because just too many people.
What's with that?
Too many people. What's up?
I can hear a clicking sound.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
No, but that's all about. There we go.
Is it good now?
Something's going on. I don't know what it is.
Is it still going?
Yeah, I don't know what that was all about.
Okay, I can try switching a mic if you guys want that. Because I don't know if it's still on right now.
I can stay. Okay,
good. Okay, but dude, I don't know, because like I'm a huge Batman fan. I have a huge story behind it. I actually had like a hand injury, like I was 7, right? And in recovery stage, all I had was like Arkham Asylum, right? And that's how I got into it, the entire thing.
The video game,
right?
Basically, one of the best Batman video games ever. I can remember that too. It really that brought Batman back into the video game.
Franchise. I honestly, I wish I joined in earlier, but I'm not that old school. But that was like I'm like 24 now, and I just got back. Yeah,
I'll be 32 in a couple of months. Yeah, in about 3 months' time, I'll be 32 years old. I've been a fan of Batman about roughly since the age of maybe 1.5 or 2 years old. I can't quite be sure, but it was all thanks to Michael Keaton. It was thanks to Michael Keaton, basically in the suit, the theme song. But the animated series came in very quickly. Even after I watched, even when I watched the original series of 1966, the original Adam West Batman. Those at the time were, along with Batman Forever with Val Kilmer, they were my childhood Batman stuff growing up as a kid. But Kevin Conroy's voice was more recognizable because that was the guy who made Batman talk more often, whereas Keaton spoke very little. And you have Val Kilmer, who kind of talks more but still keeps that mystique of Batman. But at the same time, this version of Batman is the one that mainly remembered because we've heard him many times in series and animated stuff and even in video games.
Especially the younger generation, yeah.
Yeah, even the younger generation were quick to catch up. It all depends on where they land into Batman first, regardless if you watch the original live series or the films, or if you watch the animated series. It doesn't really matter which version of Batman it is. He'll always stick with you. It all depends on how you remember him. A lot of guys tend to remember if he had different voice actors, but Kevin Conroy always sticks out. But many people keep saying that Kevin Conroy was the one who always stood out as the voice of Batman. I would say mainly for the voice of how he was growing up. But in today's time, if thanks to Batman versus Superman, with Ben Affleck who played as Batman, he kind of brought him back into my life, and he's more like the Batman of the current time as an adult in my life. The voice of despite Ben Affleck speaks deeper, like a more darker tone of Batman. That's kind of like how I vision him now. Whereas Kevin Conroy sounded more like a much younger Batman, kind of almost.
I think he brought the human side of him a lot. Like he just sounds like a natural born person than like an actual voice actor. That's how I felt about it because like in the video game, I would admit that's like, oh, he just sounded cool. But back in the animated series, I can tell that like when he was beginning with the character, he already had a mind fleshed out for him. Like he talked like a person, right? But he's just like a professional, He's Batman. He does things what he needs to. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can hear that.
You can tell Batman's, like you said, the animated Batman in the original series from 92 or 93 or whatever it was, back then, that was more, like you said, more human, but it still had a very dark purpose. Like, if you look back on the series, if you look back on the original series, you may have noticed something that I only recently found out sometime last year, that unlike the other series, the Batman series doesn't have any intro credits. It doesn't have the title. It doesn't show anything. And when you hear the theme song and when you see Batman come down, you already know who he is.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he's the only animated DC character I know of who doesn't even have a title intro or intro credits or whatnot, and that is quite crazy. That's why.
And he wasn't like as famous back then either. He just started out too. That's a big.
Yeah, but Batman was already well known as a character from the comics and from the movies. But when it became animated, somewhat, I guess, that's where he kind of broke into the mold. It just made him more popular than ever, I guess. It's kind of like, I hate to compare Batman a lot to others, but if you want to have someone who's very similar to him, I mean, if you look at the animated series of the X-Men, I mean, look at Wolverine. He's got like the Batman eyes around his mask. So I could see something like they're related almost, if not more humanized. But it's kind of like with Spider-Man as well, although he's kind of like got much bigger eyes than Batman ever had. But then again, it's just crazy to think. But it's fun how all the other guys get intro credits and know who they are, and Batman's the only one who doesn't. It's so strange how he's so different to the others. It's almost like in a way he was like, I hate to admit this, but I always felt like he was always the main hero of the DC universe and Superman came later, because that's how I found out.
Yeah.
Wolverine died in 2017.
Yeah.
Wolverine died in 2017.
I know. That was terrible, man. Other cases, again, I'm not sure how I'm going to put this. Like, I really am holding my composure with this, but this is just, like I said, we've seen how Batman has been seen in the animated series. We see more Bruce Wayne in that one as well. Like you said, even though we all know who he is, it's not like he's supposed to be this darkened character where he is a lot of times, but he doesn't come off as this, like, as we saw in Michael Keaton's film, where he's like this comic book darky, shadowy vigilante, and that's what Batman is. He's a vigilante, but he's at the same time a hero that we can look up to. I mean, there's that one interview in Batman v Superman where you kind of pull Batman out of the darkness. He is this kind of good guy who just surrounds himself after everything he had gone through. I mean, I think a lot of us can sympathize. I mean, when you look at Superman, he's more like, yeah.
He's just the American dream.
Yeah, he's back. Well, it's funny because I always thought Superman was an American character and not this alien guy who came from Kryptonian or whatever it was. It's amazing what we learn because I thought that's what Superman was, just a superpowered American guy who fights the American way. And it's funny because he says that, in the original film when Christopher Reeve played him.
Mm-hmm.
He says that to Lance Lewis or whatever her name was. And she says something. He says something like, "I fight well for the American way" or whatnot. It's kind of strange how I look at that nowadays. But with the guy who plays him now, Superman's more British almost. But then again, he kind of just have that American background attitude.
Well, he was raised. He was born. Not born and raised. He was, as a reference goes, born and raised, as in like he was just straight up raised in the American dream and way. We've seen other versions where he like got to Russia. He actually has the same type of attitude, even though he was raised basically by a dictator. He still had that type of heart where he wants to help people, right?
He does. It's basically wanting to do the right thing, and that's what Superman's all about. And we even saw a German version of it. We saw a German version of Superman. We even saw a British version of Superman, which I thought was pretty cool. But
I never heard of that one. I might have to check that out later.
That is pretty cool. But I always felt like Superman's more American because that's kind of how I like to vision him. He even talks like one.
The colors do help.
The colors, color helps his identity. It's basically when you look at Captain America and you got Spider-Man, they both got the color of the red, white, and blue in them. So if you put those two together, you got a fantastic trio of American superheroes. But in a strange twist, we're going off plot with this, but this is kind of like what I like to talk about a lot because I like to compare Superman to other heroes besides DC and the other stuff. When you look at the Marvel guys, there's 3 characters I know you've put together, and that forms basically a Marvel Superman in a way. If you put Captain America in, he fights with all the American good way. And he's the Boy Scout of Marvel, which is like Superman. He's the Boy Scout of DC. So there's something there that they have. And if you look at Spider-Man, he wants to do the right thing. With great power comes responsibility and do the right thing in the world to combat the bad guys. So that's something there. I think he and Superman having a lot in common, except they weren't teenagers when they lost something that they had. But when you look at Thor, he came from a different planet. He came from Asgard and was sent to Earth, and this and that became one of its protectors as well as part of the Avengers. And when you look at Superman, he came from a different planet. He came from the planet of Kryptonian and came to Earth, and he was basically born and raised by the Kents, becoming Clark Kent. So in a strange way, you can see a resemblance. So I say Thor, Captain America, and Spider-Man. Put those 3 together, you basically have a Marvel Superman in a way that can relate to him.
That's Sentry.
Yeah, except Thor's not American, but you can definitely tell he came from a different world. I think that's something he and Superman would have in common.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch for Thor being related, but like I can see where you're drawing towards that because again, like you mentioned, Superman was like raised, where Thor just depending what version you're reading, he was actually punished.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
actually punished to bring back to Earth to get like that type of modesty back to actually be worthy.
Yeah, I always look at Thor. I mean, the comic book Thor is okay, but I always like to go with the live action because the guy who played him, Chris Hemsworth, he's basically Thor for real in a strange twist. It's very funny how comic, and you've got someone who looks like him, looks real. It's like you're actually looking at Thor and you're talking. It's like with Henry Cavill. It's like you're talking to Superman, Ben Affleck, or Michael Keaton, or Val Kilmer. It's like you're talking to Batman. Even with Kevin Conroy, it's like you're actually talking to the childhood of Batman who you grew up with. That's how cool it is. And that's what I love about comic book heroes. And you have guys who talk like them and you kind of see them what they look like. It's like you're talking to your heroes. And that's the beauty. You know, it's funny actually because it's funny
Kevin
because
Conroy actually did do a live action role at some point. He did. Do you know about this? Where he played like an evil Batman in one of the DC. I think Legion. I could be wrong because there was a whole entire universe. Yeah.
I think that was a different version. I have seen the DVD cover, but I don't think it was live. I think this was another animated. I think.
No, it was like live action. Like he was in a suit and everything. I have not watched the episode. Yeah.
I did hear about. I have heard, but I never thought that was actually confirmed because I've heard a lot of different things, never seen.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about the new Flashpoint thing. I'm talking about there was a TV show. I could get the name wrong, called Legion, which is like a DC or DC Legends, where they are going to different universes and doing stuff. I've yet to
see the Flash version. I've only heard confirm about it, but I haven't if I go and see it, it will prove that Keaton's back in the cape and cowl. But I don't always believe what social media tell me about. That's why I tend to see on the screen and then I'll see the proof for myself. That's how I am.
Right.
But it's just
do you know? Oh, sorry.
There was another guy who I remember who did a fan film who played like the futuristic Batman, the one who instead of Bruce Wayne playing it, it's like his dad's playing it, Tom Wayne. And there was this guy who dressed up like Batman, who looked like a modern day version of Ben Affleck's Batman, who sounded like him, but he kind of almost sounded like a dark version of Kevin Conroy's Batman at the same time, which was quite awesome. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is really legit. It's just a shame. I mean, it's just a shambles. We'll never get to see like an animated version of Michael Keaton's Batman. Can you just picture the animated Batman with, doing the whole re-editing variation of the live action, doing it in animation with the actors who did them. And you've got and could you imagine the guy who voiced Batman and, Kevin Conroy and of course, and Superman, who did him in the animation, even when they first met back in the, in the original animation or wherever it was in. Imagine if they did all that in Batman v Superman with Kevin Conroy doing the exact same lines that Ben Affleck was doing. Now picture that in your mind. How cool would that have been? We would have had it. I mean, we got to see it in Dark Knight Returns, who we had the guy who played RoboCop, the older Batman in the original. But imagine if Kevin Conroy was doing it instead. I mean, he did He did Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond, which was a good fit, which was an awesome series. I just, I still loved it, but it was never on even terms with the animated series of Batman, even though it's still regarded as a very unique, darker twist on Batman, having him in black and red rather than in the classic colors. I thought that was really...
That is the Flashpoint Batman. Do you know about that?
Yeah,
where they went back in time. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I've heard about. There was a guy who did. There was a fan made version of that of Flashpoint Batman on there. And there's the guy who takes on whatever his name is, this bad dude or whatever his name was. He actually, if you want to find it, there's a fan made short made film about it, and the guy who plays him, he's not like a well-famed actor, but the guy who plays and talks like him, I'm not joking. He sounds like a futuristic Batman for future films if DC ever recruited this guy. I don't know who the hell he is, but he's freaking awesome. It sounds like you're talking to Batman for real. In the modern day time that we're in right now, it really is batshit crazy. Pardon my French. Pardon the pun, lads. But it's just incredible. because we all think of Batman as this dark, vigilante guy. He can do whatever he wants. Because if you look back to the early days when he first came in, he was super vigilante. He was over everything. I mean, back in the day, Batman was mad at beating the absolute tar out of all villains. Regretfully, he absolutely loved it. He would just like throw them off cliffs, beat them up, or roll his sleeves up, beat the ever living shite out of them. He even,
But like also he was very like more heartfelt than he was in the past. In the past, he was like very much understanding of like the whole criminal realm. I believe in the future though, he did get a little darkened and a lot more hard hitting because he did this for years, right? And you can only have like so much sympathy for these types of people for so long. Once in a while, he does get reminded by Robin. By Robin, Batgirl, and
I mean, I'm talking back in the original comics, back in the olden days, back when Batman was above everything, in the early days.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah.
In the very early, when Batman was first introduced. Yeah, he was a very different vigilante.
When he was shooting people, yeah.
Yeah, basically, think that the one thing that Batman does not use, or if he has to, that's because that was the exact same thing that took his parents, so he would never use a gun. And even though Batman does,
did you hear how that even happened?
Yeah, I know.
It was just straight up censor, and that just ended up working. That's the only time when censoring actually worked with the story to make it better.
Yeah, but basically, Batman did do it once, a couple of times. But at the same time, it's his moral code, even though he breaks it a lot of times. But basically, he's a vigilante, and if it needs to be, this is what a lot of people guys don't really like as much. But I am a firm believer. Well, I wouldn't say a firm believer, but I do feel like what Batman does to me is how any hero would take matters if you need to. If they, I mean, I know he does a good job by saving a lot of lives, but when it comes to like killing people, as we have seen him do in the past, even if he doesn't mean to, it's the last thing resort. It's basically when he's in a fight with someone and he has to like save his own skin to survive. It mainly results in the death of the villain. And as far as I'm concerned, that's ultimate justice for you. If you mess with Batman,
right,
you're either going to have to comply, submit, or you die. And that's basically how I always looked at him. That's how I looked at heroes. I mean, I've seen Spider-Man do it. Superman's done it a few times. But we've seen everybody do it. Everybody, most of the times, 9 times out of 10, the bad guy, the ultimate bad guy that anyone faces, when he does die at the hands of the hero, even if they try and save them, they die anyway, regardless. I mean, Batman has tried to do it. Like there are times where he doesn't do it himself. He basically has to do it if he needs to. I mean, look at what he did in in the films. Everybody complained about Ben Affleck's killing off guys, which was both like, hey, no sweat, he's Batman, he can get away with that. But then when you look at Michael Keaton's, nobody complained at all.
Deadpool kills people a lot.
Well, he's a vigilante, Billy, and he's meant to do that. And to me, that's just how that's quite the Dark Knight rules. But again, like I said, I mean, we saw him do it to the Joker. I mean, in Batman in 1989, and then he did it after to get revenge on his parents. Basically, sweet satisfaction as far as I'm concerned. He kind of did it to the Penguin in the film when Batman Returns, somewhat. And then we saw him get, in Batman Forever, where he avenged Robin's parents, what he did to Two-Face, which I thought was one of the best death scenes for a villain. Even without even doing anything, and he doesn't do that in the in Batman and Robin, which makes a nice change. But when we see him do it with the others, I mean, we see him in Batman Begins. He says the words like, "I don't have to cure you. Doesn't mean I don't have to save you." And he just like takes off. So that's probably another way of.
I do have a statement about that. Actually, he did start the bridge blowing up, so that kind of confused me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That he's like, "I don't have to save you, even though I started the bomb."
Yeah.
But that, I don't know. That's me.
Yeah, that was basically Batman showing signs of him being a vigilante. But that's basically him. And I was kind of accepting it. It's like basically you send the villain down his own path of destruction and he just gets out of there, avoids it. Like there's even on What Culture, there's like 10 times Batman was forced to kill. And we all know that very clearly. kind of a classic thing. I'm just like, hey, it's Batman. He can get away with it. I mean, look at Wolverine in the Marvel guys. I mean, look at how Hugh Jackman played it. He can get away with it. He's almost like Batman. He's almost like Batman on a much more extreme level.
Villain in Batman Begins was Liam Neeson.
No.
No, that was Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah,
that's yeah. I will say though, I'm oddly the opposite actually when it comes to I'm the other side when it comes to like non-killing, right? I'm on that side, which is like it's interesting hearing this perspective. I can't really disagree with you on those things because like those are the things you like and that has happened, right? I always a big fan of like the whole no killing rule because even though a lot of people disagree with that, maybe you too, but like it's to me.
I'm 50-50 with Batman. I'm 50-50 with it. I mean, I like to go with the fact he doesn't have to, but if it's a last resort or left with no choice but to, then he has to do so. It's like what we saw in The Dark Knight, where he, saved Commissioner Gordon and his son, but he intentionally had to kill Two-Face in order to... And he didn't.
Yeah, he did do that, and that bothered me, but yeah, you're right.
But you can tell he didn't really want to, but he had no choice.
Of course, yeah, you are correct. A lot of people, like...
Yeah.
I'm in the far left when it comes to like Batman does not kill. Like that's me, right? But like the fact that he did that, he did do that. A lot of people like that's funny because the people on my side like to argue where he's like, oh no, he just fell and gravity killed him. Like no, he did that. Like he brought him out there, and they both fell. So he did technically kill him. Yeah.
He didn't have to admit. He was left with no choice. He never meant to do so. But in
that circumstances, yes, yeah.
I mean, I hate to spill it out. I mean, any of us would have done exactly the same thing. I mean, to save the one.
Maybe.
Like, if we saved say like we had someone we loved, and we do it for the sake of them or a friend, or save someone in our family, like save the elderly who are too weak to defend. You have to do, sometimes you have to put your judgment aside and then you do it afterwards. This is the reason why people don't quite, because I always have a couple of OCs who kind of do what Batman does, but he always justifies that he has either no choice or it was just for their own good. Because, it's basically, Batman's a shades of grey character. He's basically a good guy, but has a dark side in him. And even he will come to terms. But at the same time, he does manage to move on afterwards. But like as we said earlier on, like in the comics, as we saw afterwards, especially after Death in the Family in the comics where Batman lost Robin, that kind of what pushed him to becoming the much more sinister Dark Knight that most of us tend to know and love. It's like, especially when it's even explained in the wiki of Batman v Superman in the DC Extended Universe of why he was like what we saw him on screen. It explains why he became a much more darker, badass Batman that everyone would fear. Basically bringing out the true colors of his vigilantism side that he held back for so long, and, because he loved Robin, he loved him like he was a family, something that Batman lagged, because he never had that, he only knew Alfred, he only knew Commissioner Gordon, and when he had Robin, he was trying to help make a family with them to be, so he wouldn't be lonely, because that's what Batman was. And of course, all the way through to...
What about Rachel?
And Rachel as well, yeah. And then we saw, and as we all know, Batman in Dark Knight Returns when he was a bit older, because in the comic books, he's like 55 years old at that point, whereas in the animation version, Batman's about roughly 50. So there's a little difference there. But you can see how he had been retired for 10 years and, he didn't want to repeat anything like that again. That's why he had the cowl hanged up until he came back out of retirement, and that brutal time he fought with Superman, which was a good fight. But, it was entertaining in the animation, but in the film version of it, it was brutal, and you can just see how badly Batman wanted to just like almost kill Superman, because it was technically the first time they ever met, and he didn't quite know who he was, and he had a good chance of beating him. And he even said it in his last line before he faked his death, saying that, out of all the time in your private moments, Superman, I want you to know that I was the first one who beat you. And I kind of like to think Batman's the only guy technically, human-wise, to ever beat the Man of Steel.
With
But they're
prep
so
time, yeah.
mad. But I do believe Batman's the only guy who could beat him in a fair fight. And I mean, if you look at Superman, he's not quite as different to Batman as you might want to think. Otherwise, besides being the whole dark thing, it was different. But they both did lose their parents at a young age. They're both orphans. They both had, they were raised differently, and of course, but Superman was more. He's different to other people, and why, he wants to do the right thing always. Whereas Batman is like, by any means necessary, inflicts justice regardless. If there's any injustice, he did. That's where he, really shines well.
The whole difference between the two is like the Bruce Wayne obviously was dramatically injured in like way before he was matured, so that like gives psychological damage throughout the future. Where Superman, all he really went through is like, and it's valid, very valid, that he had to go through his powers and know how to control them when growing up, which could be its own metaphor and its own thing. But like he, by his parents, was raised right and continued wanting to do the right thing always. Where Bruce Wayne, because they're both the same person, grew up to just be self-dependent and to be the most perfect human being he can be, to stop crime, to just stop anybody from losing their life towards something like that, where it's like a criminal. Yeah.
Basically, Batman was doing, as we heard in Batman Forever, which I thought explained a little better of why he does the things he does, which is why I thought was a really good storytelling. So, like Batman says, he would use his vigilantism to strike terror into the hearts of those who do evil, and to ensure what happened to him never happens to anybody else again, because he doesn't want nobody else to lose their parents, to be shot by a gun or whatever the case may be. So that's technically the reason why he does what he does. So which is very understandable. Any of us would have done the exact same thing. But at the same time, the whole thing with justice is something that Batman and Superman clash with. But they're both on two sides of the coin,
Well, that's the thing. There is no right answer for either of them, honestly, because they both have like the same ideals, just a different tactic to go by.
Yeah, except like I said, when it's very difficult how their relationship is, but I still consider the two of them to be somewhat good of friends. But we've always seen them clash.
No, they are.
I wouldn't. I mean, I think, like I said, I have all the characters. Superman's the only guy who could almost be like a mirror image to Batman in terms of like who they are, and because they have gone down similar roads, as we all know. It's like, and of course, despite what happened in Batman v Superman, where he got manipulated and believing that Superman was never this good guy and whatnot, like we saw in the movie, which I thought I still love it regardless of what people think, because I loved it because it's got Batman in it. But the whole thing is afterwards when he saved, Martha, aka Superman's mother, for what happened in the movie. Right. I like to think of it like he was kind of finally coming to terms with being human and understanding everything again, and he could relate to Superman, Clark Kent, or whatever you want to call him. I saw that as his way of redeeming his own failure of powerlessness, which when he couldn't save his own mother from dying when he was, as a young kid. So I feel that Batman kind of redeemed his own, in a way, of his own tragicness. Like he finally saved somebody else who had the same name as his own mom, in a way, and it helped him come to terms with it a lot better. So I feel like that kind of helped him a lot.
There was a whole theory about the whole breakdown of that entire scene, which I like this version a lot, where Of course, they have the same mother name, which is like a lot of people make fun of that. But what I like to think is, and it's based off someone else's idea, where he never saw Superman as a human being. He never saw him as a person. And when he yelled out Martha, it triggered, obviously his memory of his own mother, and that's why he's yelling like, "Why'd you say that name?" And he's just like, "That's my mother." And he realizes this is a man. This is a man with a mother, right? And that's where he got out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, Superman's the only guy who could help Batman get to his senses. I don't care what anybody say. I'm not going to lie. When I first heard it, I was just shouting. I actually felt what Batman was going through. Like, if just keep in mind, even at this point, because in that version, Batman's roughly about, compared to what I read about the one on the wiki about it, Batman's like 45 years old at this point. So he's just starting to become like a prequel to Dark Knight Returns, because you can tell by the attire and the suit, it's like building up to that moment in the comics almost. So it's like a prelude to that almost. So I'd like to think, okay, he's still traumatized by the death of his parents. It's like that's what's driving his inner rage, but he's going about his vigilante a bit too far. But I still love what he was doing when he was brandishing the drug dealers and everybody else, when he was like killing or battering them as much. I was thinking, okay, this is like the Batman we've been craving for, a lot. Something that I think Keaton and the others couldn't do. But just picture that in your mind, them doing it anyways. But when I saw that scene play out and everything going back, I was thinking he's having a flashback here. He's getting traumatized. He's triggering off Batman's, childhood that he doesn't want to forget. It really does. It really had an effect on him. And like you said, it did make Batman come to his senses, and he realized where he was going. He almost became the very thing that he hates. He became the very thing that took his own family.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that comparison in. I am complete opposite when it comes to that movie, where I completely disliked it. But I'm glad to hear your perspective on it, because it gives me a better perspective on how people think of his character and how he is portrayed and what his past was. And I understand that. That makes sense.
It was really staring everyone in the face, and people just dismissed it. But I could see what they were telling the story of, because I've seen the director's cut version, which I've got. Even better. 30 minutes longer. It tells the story even better. And it just shows of how far Batman's come in like 20 years at that point, as a vigilante. It's like he's reached that point where is it worth it for me doing what he's doing now? It's like he's.
I wanted a movie before that, before that even happened.
I was hoping, I still love what we got, but I was kind of
thinking. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I was kind of thinking, we don't want another standalone Batman movie. I wanted to see him in a, where, like, I was kind of thinking they're going to do like Superman 2, and that's where we're going to see Batman like link it up, like. We could see him like he's been watching the whole time and he's unsure about who he is. But I was thinking they were going to slowly build it up. Like this is what I was visioning in the build-up. Like they're going to do the first part where they first meet up with each other, which they did do. I thought it would happen like nearly almost at the beginning, where like I don't know, what if Superman kind of saved Batman in that fight when he had his fight with General Zod or whatever it was. But like they were slowly going to become like acquaintances, like it's Batman and Superman. They're fighting together still, but they don't develop a friendship yet until maybe the next movie or something. Like they're constantly wondering who is this or that or whatever, and then they would eventually become united. That's kind of like how
as a character, I would respect it. I did not like the writing of the entire film.
No, I mean, if you watch the director's cut version, it tells the story a bit more better. That's the theatrical version. The theatrical version was butchered and rushed. So if you watch the director's cut on the Blu-ray, which runs half an hour longer with scenes that weren't even shown, you will it actually tells the story much better, and Batman's character and Superman even more better. So it's true. It works. It's actually the better version. I still love it for what it was, because they brought the Batman we wanted for so long. I mean, how he donned the cape, the suit, even the one where he had his armor with the glowing eyes. That was pure gold. I was like, we've never seen an armored Batman on screen, and it looked like, I don't know why, but when you see him and his eyes glowing in the dark, it kind of reminded me of like a modern day Michael Keaton Batman.
Well, they portrayed Batman more comedic in the Lego movie.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Michael Keaton almost a little bit, because that's kind of how I'd like to see Batman, because it kind of reminded me of the animated series a little bit, because we've always seen Batman in the eyes, where we can see his eyes moving around, whereas in the animation version, you don't see that. You can still see, but you don't see his eyes moving around. And I felt like the armored version of him in Batman v Superman, even when you saw him in the animated version of Dark Knight Returns, it was kind of like that. And that's what I loved about Ben Affleck's Batman. But at the same time, this whole thing, it's just going to be so gutted. I mean, so many comparisons of who the better Batman was, but to see that we've lost, that we've lost Kevin Conroy as the voice actor of Batman and Bruce Wayne in the animated series versions and everything. I don't know how DC are going to recover from this one. I don't think none of us will. I just don't. Right now, I can tell everybody right now is literally just breaking down. Even the guys who have known for so long, even the younger generation, will be quick to catch up. I won't be surprised if it makes the headlines in the papers tomorrow. Hang on, be right back.
Hello. We're all done. And it wasn't cold today, really, was it?
From my teammate, unfortunately, we lost one of Batman's legends. Kevin Conroy passed away. His voice actor, in the anime series, I've not watched it. Kevin Conroy.
Oh, I love this sunset. Oh. What I got from the acres. Over there. Oh, I'll bring it out. He said this to you. No, I'll send it to her. Oh, that's okay.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry if I'm going on for a second, but I'll be right back with you. I got wrapped up pretty quickly because we've gone for a bit long enough. Okay, guys, this has been a very rough time, and like I said, For those of you who have been here to the very end, thank you for taking part in this Remembrance Day, but also remembering the voice actor of Batman, Kevin Conroy. Again, if you're looking up in heaven right now, my friend, that was for you, and we won't forget you. Thank you for the memories. And for you guys as well, thanks for tuning in. Again, this is KFan 701. I'm sorry that this day has been remembered to remember the fallen who gave their lives. But we also now must remember the life of Kevin Conroy, aka the Batman of the animated series. May he rest in peace. Good night until I come back later on, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.